So my score in this game, this is in New York, and the Buffalo Bills had such a crazy game on Sunday night. I'm picking this as an upset where the Jets win this game 30-24. All right, welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL statistical leaders from the all-time greats to the current players leading the NFL. I'm Ernie Jennings, your host, and we're back looking at week 2, a preview of the games. And I will let you know that my previews are a little different than what you're going to hear on other places. I give you some of what I think about each team, but a lot of what I'm talking about in this is anybody on the team who has a chance to move up in the top 10 in their statistical rankings, whether it's on a team level or an NFL level. So we'll look at those players, but I also will talk about the team a little bit, and I will talk about the fantasy outlook for the players that I think on this team, whichever teams I'm talking about at the time, who I think are worthwhile or not. So with that, let's get going with game number 1, which is tonight. It's the Washington Commanders at the Green Bay Packers. Now, Green Bay leads this series all time 22-17 with one tie. Now, Green Bay is favored by 3.5, which is surprising to me that it's only 3.5 because it is in Green Bay. But that is the numbers are giving it 3.5 favored by Green Bay. So let's look at some of the stats we're going to be looking at. The first one is Jordan Love right now, and he'd have to have a big game. He'd have to have a game like Aaron Rodgers had last week for the Steelers when he threw 4 touchdown passes. But Jordan Love is 7th all-time in passing touchdowns for the Green Bay Packers with 62. Next up at number 6 is Arnie Herbert from 1930 to 1940, quite a ways back, who had 66 passing TDs. So Jordan Love's going to have 4 to tie and 5 to pass, which in this game could be a possibility. I do see this as kind of a high-scoring game. I think the Commanders with Daniels will be tough. Now, Aaron Rodgers is number 1 and will stay number 1 most likely on this team for the foreseeable future with 475 passing TDs. So, all right, that's one stat. Another one, tackles for loss, which you're going to see this stat in a lot of games, a lot of teams. Right now, Rashawn Gary is just outside the top 10 with 40. Vonnie Holliday has 41, and Preston Smith has 42. So those are two guys that Rashawn Gary is looking to catch for 9th and 10th. So he should, with one, he'll move into at least a tie in the number 10 all time for tackles for loss for the Green Bay Packers. Now looking at the Washington Commanders, again, this is Terry McLaurin, who did not really have a good game last week. He had a chance to move to number 5 all time in passing yards with the Washington Commanders, but he didn't. So right now he's got 6,406. Bobby Mitchell, who played back in the 60s, has 6,492. So Terry McLaurin needs 87 yards, and he'll move into 5th all time. So that's definitely something that's possible. And like I said, in this game where I do feel like it could be a lot of scoring, he has a definite chance. And I think they're going to do, Terry McLaurin was out a little bit because of the contract dispute. So hopefully another game, another week of practice and that one game under his belt will help him as he moves forward. Now looking at Austin Eckler, if he plays right now, he is 3rd all-time in the NFL for running backs catching touchdowns out of the backfield. So he's 3rd all-time. Marshall Faulk's 1st with 36. Darren Sproles 2nd with 32. And Austin Eckler has 30. Now, when we get to it, we'll see that I believe McCaffrey has 29. So he's right behind Eckler and very well may pass him even this week. So we're watching Eckler if he's playing. Now, when we're looking at tackles for loss for the Commanders, again, on a team level, Darren Payne needs 1 to move from third into a tie for second with Jonathan Allen, who was with the team from 2017 to just last year, but then he moved on to Minnesota. He has 60 tackles for loss. Darren Payne has 59, so he needs 1 to tie, 2 to pass him. Now, Ryan Kerrigan leads the Commanders all time with 119 tackles for loss. Now, also in this game is Von Miller, who's been with quite a few teams, but in his entire career, right now he's tied for 6th all-time in the NFL for tackles for loss with 171. He's tied with a couple of other players, fairly well-known players, DeMarcus Ware, Jared Allen. Now, number 5, and this would be probably a stretch for Von Miller because his career is kind of winding down, so I do not see him getting 4 tackles for loss. But if he did, he would tie Julius Peppers, who has 175 for 5th all-time in the NFL. So he's moving up this list. And we'll talk about this tackles for loss list more than once this year for sure. There's other players in the top 10 all-time NFL that are moving up the list as well. So those are some of the players we're looking at as far as stats go. Now, when we're looking at these two teams from a fantasy outlook, so we're talking about the Commanders and the Packers. Well, definitely, if you've got Jaden Daniels, you're starting him. Right now, he's on ESPN, he's the 4th ranked quarterback. And I definitely see that as a very good spot for him, and even higher possibly than 4th by the time this week's over with. I think they're going to have to rely on him a lot. So he's definitely somebody you're starting as far as that go. Now, the opposite, Jordan Love, very questionable. He's 12th. And I think that's kind of where he may be all year long. So if you're in a super flex league or something, maybe you play Love. But I definitely would be looking somewhere else, somebody who could have a better game. Now, I do think he'll have a good game. I just don't know if he's somebody that's going to be in the top 10 by the end of the, as we look into the, after this week. So looking at the running backs, let's get that up here. Looking at the running backs in this game, the only running backs, obviously you're going to start Jacobs. He's listed as 5th in ESPN. He's going to get the ball a lot. I really do expect to see him getting the ball quite a bit. So he's definitely going to be a starter. I'm looking at this other list over here real quick. Now, as far as Detroit, I do fully expect to see a big change with Gibbs. Well, I'm sorry, not Detroit. What am I talking about here? The Commanders. For the Commanders, they've got nobody I would start. It looks like it's kind of a backfield by committee type of situation. So I'm not starting anybody on that side of the ball for sure. Unless you absolutely have to. I mean, even Krosky Merritt, who is their lead running back, but he won't normally play on passing downs. So that hurts him. I think that it's very possible that Daniels could steal touchdowns from him. So he didn't have a bad game last week, but I don't know that that's going to be the norm for him. So I wouldn't start any running back from the Commanders if I could help it. Now, the opposite goes for when you're talking about the receivers. For Green Bay, I wouldn't start a receiver. I really don't care. If you looked at the game last week, he just spreads the ball around. That is the way they did it all last week. They did it, all last year. They did it last week the same way. So there's just nobody I want to put my faith in. Even the tight end, there's really nobody. So I'm not going to start any Green Bay wide receiver. Only Jacobs is really the only guy I want to start as far as that team goes. Now, on the other hand, I do want to start McLaurin. I think he had a rough game last week, but even though he's ranked 19th wide receiver, he's definitely going to be if maybe not your number one wide receiver, but you're playing in at least a 2 wide receiver league. So you're going to have Terry McLaurin as your second. I think he's going to have a big game this week. I know Green Bay's a tough defense, but what counteracts that is Daniels. He can run and get out and gives McLaurin time to be down the field and definitely to do well. Another one, and I think the experts are still hesitant because of Deebo Samuel's play last year, but he's somebody that I think Daniels loves underneath. And so I expect another big game out of Deebo Samuels, even though some of these experts have him listed as the number 32 wide receiver. I'm betting that he'll do a lot better than that. So those are 2 wide receivers I would start in this game. All right. As far as tight ends, there's nobody I'd want to start either team. So looking at this game all total, I'm picking the Packers to win 27-20. I really wanted to pick the Commanders to win this game, but it's in Green Bay. If this was in Washington, I do think I'd pick the upset because I'm sure even in Washington, Green Bay would have been favored. They're only favored by 3.5, so I'm a little surprised by that. So I'd love to pick the Commanders, but I'm going to pick the Packers to win this game only because it's in Green Bay. I think the teams are fairly even overall. All right, game number 2, Los Angeles Rams at the Tennessee Titans. The Rams lead this series 8-6 all time. The Rams are favored by 5.5, which I think they'll easily cover, which kind of gives you a hint on who I think is going to win. In this game, there's nobody really for the Tennessee Titans to talk about as far as stats go. Now, on the other hand, you do have, for the Rams, you have Matthew Stafford, who in the touchdown department for the Rams in this first instance is 8th right now. Number 7 is Bob Waterfield, who played from 1945 to 1952. These records that the Rams have had as far as passing TDs have been around a long time. Roman Gabriel's number 1. He played back in the 60s and early 70s. He had 154 passing TDs. I don't see Matthew Stafford ever getting there, but he only needs 2 to pass Bob Waterfield to move into 7th all-time for the Rams. Now, on an NFL status, Matthew Stafford right now is 10th in the NFL all-time in touchdown passes with 378. Matt Ryan spent most of his career with the Falcons and just retired a few years ago, same year as Tom Brady did. But Matt Ryan had 381 touchdowns. So Matthew Stafford needs 3 touchdowns to tie Matt Ryan to pass him to move into 9th all-time in the NFL. All right. Now, looking at one more stat here, Kyren Williams has 27 touchdowns. He's one behind Roman Gabriel, who has 28, as well as Dick Horner, Roman Gabriel, the quarterback, to move into a tie for 10th all-time. He needs 2 to move into 9th all-time leading carrier for running touchdowns. So those are a couple of the stats we'll be watching, Kyren Williams and Matthew Stafford. And it won't be for quite a while before we'll talk about somebody from the Titans. Now, looking at this game from a fantasy outlook, here's where it's a little difficult. As well as great as I think Stafford is, I don't know that I want to start him on my team. You have to rely completely on the passing game, and he may have a good game, but he's definitely somebody I'm not going to start. So I'd leave that one alone as far as that goes. And the same goes for Tennessee. I'm not starting the quarterback there either. So no quarterbacks in this game. Now, it's a different story when we're looking at the running backs. Definitely I'm starting Kyren Williams. They've got him ranked 9th. Some people have him as high as 6th and some as far as 14th, which is very interesting. I do expect a good game out of Kyren Williams. And I think they'll feed him the ball enough, especially if they take a lead, which is another reason I don't want to play Stafford. I think he might jump out in this game, unlike they did with Houston, where they only won 14-9. I think that the Rams are going to pull away on this game, even though it is in Tennessee, and win it pretty handily. So I see Kyren Williams having a better game than he did last week. As far as Titans go, do I want to start at Tony Pollard? Probably. I like Tony Pollard. He's always underrated, and I think he could definitely be somebody that could have a good game this game. Rams are very tough, and you saw that, though. Houston, when they played Houston's offensive line is horrible. So it's a little different story. But I do think Tennessee has a chance here with Tony Pollard to have a good game. So I would start Tony Pollard as your second running back. If you only have one, you're not starting him. They have him rated on ESPN at 20th. But I think he could definitely be your number 2 running back. Now, looking at the wide receivers, well, obviously you're always going to start Nakua. Right now, he's the 4th ranked wide receiver, and he's just incredible. Stafford looks for him all the time, so he's definitely somebody I'm going to start against Tennessee. Davante Adams, their other wide receiver, equally has a good chance. He didn't have a touchdown last week. I'd put money because he's a touchdown machine. He's one of the best all-time in touchdowns receiving. I think there's a chance that he catches a touchdown pass. I don't think he's going to be shadowed the way he was last week by Houston's Stingley. So I do think Davante Adams will have a good game as well. Do you want to start them both? I don't know if you do that, but if you have one or the other, you're always going to start Nakua, and Davante Adams could be your second or your flex wide receiver. So he's definitely a good start, I think. Now for Tennessee, I do like their new wide receiver. Well, Calvin Ridley, actually, I should say Calvin Ridley. You know what? I get Tennessee and Carolina. I don't know why. I always get them flipped a lot of times. But Calvin Ridley, I wouldn't start him. He's 31 ranked. He's somebody I don't like to mess with. When he was with the Raiders, he drops too many passes, I feel like, but he's really good. When he does catch it, he's fast. He can get open, but he has a tendency to drop the passes. And I'm reluctant to play him for that very reason. So if you're stuck, he probably could be your second or your flex wide receiver if you need to. And he could have a big game. That's the kind of thing. He's kind of more of a hit or miss, but they will try to feed him the ball to some degree. So he's somebody you want to look at. As far as their tight ends go, neither one of them am I going to start. They're afterthoughts in a way. They're not somebody, even if you just are picking a tight end up each week, I wouldn't be picking either one of these tight ends. All right, so as far as the game as a whole goes, I'm picking the Rams to win this game easily, 24-13. I really think they're just going to run the ball as much as they want to, and Stafford will throw a couple of touchdown passes, and they'll just take charge of this game, and Titans will have a rough game. All right. It's a rough year for Cam Ward. I like Cam Ward as a quarterback, but he starts off with the Denver Broncos defense and the Rams defense. I think after these 2 games, things have to get a little easier. These are 2 tough defenses for him to step into in his first year in the NFL. Next game, the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys lead this series 77 wins to 47 for the Giants and 2 ties. Now the Cowboys are favored by 3.5. It's in Dallas, so that makes sense. Looking at some of the numbers, Dak Prescott, and a bad stat, is 4th all-time in sacks as a quarterback. He's been sacked 256 times in his career. Dandy Don Meredith, from in the 60s was sacked 257 times. And Troy Aikman, which is very interesting. I just saw him on an old episode of Coach. If you ever see him, he was on Troy Aikman was on that episode, one of those. He was sacked 259 times. So Dak Prescott only needs 1 to tie Don Meredith, 2 to pass him, 3 to tie Troy Aikman, and 4 to pass him. I think this is possible that he moves all time into second, leaving him only Roger Staubach, who was sacked 313 times. I do think Dak Prescott, if he stays with the team next year, will move into first place all time in the sack department, unfortunately for him. So we'll watch that. Now for the New York Giants, again, this is even worse than Dak Prescott, who's been sacked 256 times in his career. You've got Russell Wilson for the Giants. As far as sacks go, Aaron Rodgers leads the NFL all-time in sacks with 575. Tom Brady had 565. Russell Wilson has 562 times that he's been sacked. He only needs 3 to tie Tom Brady, 4 to pass him. Again, if he's starting and he plays the entire game, I think he'll probably at least tie Tom Brady for third all-time as far as this goes. He's just he just gets sacked a lot. So he likes that deep ball, which is good for neighbors, but when you throw the deep ball as much as he does, you're going to take the sack. All right, in tackles for loss for the Giants, Michael Strahan leads the team all-time with 131. Dexter Lawrence right now is 10th all-time with 36 tackles for loss. Keith Hamilton is in 9th with 37. So Dexter Lawrence needs 1 tackle for loss to tie, 2 to move into the lead in that category. All right, let's look at the fantasy numbers as far as these quarterbacks go. So we're talking about Prescott, who, I want to say is going to be a good quarterback, but because I think they don't have a running game, so I expect to see Prescott throwing the ball a lot every game. So I do expect to see him up there on a regular basis. Let me get this up here real quick. Yeah, I would say Prescott's somebody you want to start. I know the Giants are a tough defense, but I just can't imagine him not throwing the ball on a regular basis. They just don't, like I said, they just don't have a running game to make that big of a difference. Right now, he's the 15th ranked quarterback, but I think he's somebody you could possibly start. Now, for the Giants, I'm not starting anybody. I don't care who it is. If it's Wilson or whoever, you're not starting a quarterback for the Giants. Now, as far as the running backs go, I'm not starting any of the running backs, despite the game that Williams had. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. So, that helps your stats, but I'm not going to start any of these guys. Let me get this up here the way I want it so I can see some of these guys as far as this goes. All right. So I'm not going to start any running back for the Cowboys, most likely, unless you really have to. Javonte Williams is the 22nd. So if you've got a team where you have 2 running backs, maybe a flex, you might start him. Like I said, he did have a couple of touchdowns, which really helped his numbers last week. But he finished with over 18 points in a PPR league. And when I'm always talking PPR league. So that's not bad. But I don't know if you can count on that week in, week out. Now for the New York Giants, it's kind of the same thing. Who do you want to start? Nobody really. You have Tyrone Tracy. He's the 24th ranked running back. I don't know if you can count on him. I wouldn't start him if I don't have to. So really nobody in that department. Now, as far as wide receivers go, well, obviously you're going to start Malik Neighbors. They're always trying to force feed him the ball. He will get his catches. The yards just depends on if he can break something and get free. But he should rack up points just as far as in a PPR. At least every catch he's going to get the ball thrown his way a lot of times. So definitely Malik Neighbors, the only player for the Giants that I'm starting. Now for Dallas, again, you're starting CeeDee Lamb. You're starting these two guys every game, every year. I mean, all year long. CeeDee Lamb's the third ranked wide receiver. I do think CeeDee Lamb has a chance to be number one all time. I probably said that last week too. So you're starting both of those guys. Now, the one that you want to debate on starting is Pickens. It's up to you. I like him, and I think he's going to have a role to play. And if they do throw the ball as much as I think he has a chance to have a good game as well. So he's definitely somebody you could put as your second or your flex guy. They have him down as far as 42nd. I'm a little shocked, and maybe it's just because the idea is Prescott's still going to throw it to CeeDee Lamb. It's just that CeeDee Lamb should have a little bit more room to roam. So maybe that's the thought there. But I think Pickens is going to have a good game. And Pickens may be one of those guys, though, where you're trying to pick the game where you think he'll have a good game. It's going to be a little bit tough. Now, Jake Ferguson, if you're a guy that is picking your tight end each week, Jake Ferguson is the 11th ranked tight end. He could have a good game. We'll see. But he'd be the only player as far as tight ends go in this game. For the game outlook, I give the Cowboys winning this game. It is in Dallas. I don't think it'll be as close as the numbers. I think it's a 20-10 game. I think the Giants, quarterback-wise, are in tough shape. And until they figure that out, I just don't see Russell Wilson being the guy. But we'll see. I could be wrong. All right, next game. San Francisco 49ers at the New Orleans Saints. And we'll try to move this along. San Francisco 49ers lead this series 50-27-2. The 49ers, even though this is in New Orleans, are favored by 7.5. That's a huge amount. That's the biggest one I've seen this week. And just talking about Alvin Kamara, great player for the Saints. It's unfortunate for him. He's been on so many bad teams in the last few years. But he's the active leader all time for the Saints in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. Just a great player. The same goes in receiving yards, actually. Right now, he's seventh he's not all-time leader, but he's on the list, top 10. He's seventh all-time in receiving yards for the Saints with 4,774, right behind Jimmy Graham. He only needs 18 yards, and he moves into sixth all-time in receiving yards, passing Jimmy Graham. The same goes for touchdowns, which may be a little harder this week. He's ninth all-time right now behind Henry Childs, who played in the 70s, who has 27 touchdowns receiving. Alvin Kamara has 25 touchdowns receiving, so only needs 2 to tie, 3 to pass him. It may take him weeks to actually catch a touchdown pass, but you never know. Now, again, looking at Alvin Kamara, he's the guy. He's the only guy on this team. But looking as far as a running back in receptions, all time in the NFL, he's 8th all time in receptions with 575, just behind number 7th ranked Keith Byers, who had 578. So Alvin Kamara only needs 3 receptions to tie, 4 to pass to move into 7th all time as far as receptions go by a running back. Same goes for the yards by a running back. He's 10th. He passed LaDainian Tomlinson, the great LaDainian Tomlinson, last week to move into 10th all-time in receiving yards. Next up for him is Darren Sproles, who's 9th, who has 4,840 yards. Alvin Kamara has 4,774. So he does need 67 yards in this game receiving to move into 9th all-time. So really an incredible career he has. And one more stat just to show you how great Alvin Kamara is. Right now, he's just outside the top 10 in the NFL all-time running backs in touchdown receptions with the 25 that we mentioned. Number 10 is Joe Morrison, who played way back from 1959 to 1972, but he has 27 touchdown passes. So 2 to move into tie for 10th all-time in the NFL, where he's trying to catch Henry Childs. That's just for the Saints, Henry Childs being a wide receiver. So obviously they normally have more. So Alvin Kamara is the guy. You were watching him almost any catch yardage-wise, and he's going to set the records. As far as just running the ball, he's already got all the records for the Saints. So he is the guy. Now looking at another guy who's on the all-time list, and that's Cameron Jordan. He's got 100. He's already number one all-time in tackles for loss with 162, which is 10th all-time in the NFL. So another guy, he's been around a long time. Last week, he tied Ricky Jackson in sacks with 123. He had 1.5 sacks last week. So Cameron Jordan and Ricky Jackson are tied all-time for the Saints with 123 sacks. So the next even half sack, and Cameron Jordan will be the all-time leader for the team in sacks as well as tackles for loss. So probably he should be able to get a half a sack. So those are some of the stats in this game. It's all Alvin Kamara. See, all the guys have been on the team for a while, so we'll watch it. And the other one is Russell Wilson. Again, another guy that's been around a long time. Now in this game with the Saints, I'm sorry, skip Russell Wilson there. The 49ers and the Saints. Well, in this game, obviously, Brock Purdy, I wouldn't start because I don't even know if he's going to play. I doubt he's playing even. So if you had him, you might want to swap him out. He's not going to be playing, I don't think. That's what it sounded like. And I wouldn't start any quarterback for the Saints. So the quarterbacks are basically out as far as that goes. Now, Alvin Kamara is not going to be your starting running back. He could be your second or your flex player because he will catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. So that's where he really excels. And in a PPR league, that's very helpful. So definitely somebody I'm going to want to think about playing. On the other hand, you're definitely starting Christian McCaffrey, who is the number one guy. And with Kittle out and Ayuk out, they're just hurting all over as far as people to throw the ball to. So I think they're going to lean on McCaffrey a lot again this game. They did last week. But because of their situation, they'll play him until they can if they get a big enough lead. So McCaffrey probably be running the ball, catching the ball, and should have a really good game. Other than that, when you're talking about the wide receivers, Olave is somebody you probably will think about starting as your second wide receiver. And then I don't trust the Saints at all as far as anybody on the team. So I just don't know if I want to even start him. I'm looking to see, he's ranked 33rd, so he'd be no better than your flex player, which I think is a little bit off. He might do better than that because of, well, let me take that back. I changed my mind on that. I think that may be where he is. He may have a bigger game than that, where I think, and we'll talk about it in a second, is their tight end that's come out of nowhere. So I'm not sure I want to start Olave because you've also got Rashid Shaheed. And there's a lot of people thinking he'll be the guy. And if Rattler's dumping it off a lot, he's going to be hitting the tight end Shaheed. So those two could ultimately do better than Olave. Now, Olave could catch some. He actually did see a lot of passes thrown his way. So, again, between the two wide receivers and the tight end, I just don't want to start anybody. And same goes for the wide receivers for Pearsall will be the only one I'd want to start as far as wide receivers go for San Francisco. And even then, he's going to be my second or probably more like my flex, but maybe my second guy. He might be a decent second wide receiver for you because of the fact that there's not many people to throw the ball to. Now, when it comes to the tight ends, Jawan Johnson had a huge game last week. So as far as tight ends go, so we'll see how he does this week. But he's somebody you might think about. Right now, he's listed as at 14th. But if you're flexing people, or not flexing, but just picking up tight ends each week, he's somebody you might think about. And then obviously with Kittle out for 49ers, you're not going to start anybody from that team. So in this game, let me back up here because I knew I had forgot this part. Let me talk about the 49ers before I wrap this and give you the score. Because, I talked about how great Alvin Kamara was as a running back out of the backfield. Well, Christian McCaffrey's equally as good. He doesn't have the yards yet or the receptions yet that Alvin Kamara has. But when it comes to the touchdowns all time in the NFL, he's 6th. And he's right behind Austin Eckler, Brian Westbrook, and James Brooke, who have 30. They all have 30. Christian McCaffrey has 29. I think in this game, he should at least tie those three to move into a tie for 3rd. Darren Sproles is 2nd all time with 32. So outside chance to tie him and very outside chance to pass Darren Sproles. He'd have to have 4 touchdown receptions, which I doubt happens, but he definitely could get 1. So he's somebody I'm going to be watching. He's even farther up this list. Now, 2 other players real quick, and we'll wrap this up, is Nick Bosa is the guy to watch. He's number 2 all-time in tackles for loss for the 49ers, right behind Bryant Young. He has 90 tackles for loss. Bryant Young has 93. So he only needs 3 to tie, 4 to pass. And the same goes in the sack department. Nick Bosa's 5th all-time. Charles Haley, who played back in the 80s and 90s, had 66.5 sacks. Nick Bosa has 63.5 sacks. So he needs 3 to tie, 3.5 to move into 4th all-time. Now, the score in this game, I have the 49ers winning it 24-20. It's in New Orleans. I think there's a chance that Saints could hang in here and not let this get to be a blowout, especially since it's in New Orleans. Game number 5, Buffalo Bills at New York Jets. The Bills lead the series 71-58. All right. As far as the Jets go, the same as last week, you got these 2 defensive players and tackles for loss. You have the 2 Williams, not brothers, but Quinnen Williams and Quincy Williams. Quinnen Williams has 54 tackles for loss, 1 behind John Abraham and David Harris to move into a tie for 5th. So he needs 1 to have 5th and 2 to move into 5th all by himself. Quincy Williams, a little farther back, he's got 51. He's in 8th right now. He needs, 3 to tie Quinnen Williams if he doesn't get any, and 4 to tie David Harris, John Abraham, and as far as 5th goes. So that's it for the Jets as far as stats go. Now, and that's really it. We do have, let me get this off of here. Josh Allen, not as the passing, not throwing the ball, but as far as rushing yards go, as far as quarterbacks. Right now, Lamar Jackson's number 1 all time. So he'll just keep moving out. And he's got a big lead, really, over anybody else. But Steve Young played in the 80s and 90s, is 6th all time with 4,239 rushing yards. Josh Allen's next with 4,172. So Josh Allen needs 68 yards rushing to pass Steve Young, which, for him is possible. I don't, he doesn't get that many normally, but if he breaks anything off and the style of defense that the Jets play, it's a possibility. If they turn their back on Josh Allen, he could get it. Another stat already, Josh Allen had moved into all-time lead in rushing touchdowns with 67. And that puts him only chasing Cam Newton for the all-time lead as far as quarterbacks go in rushing touchdowns. But he's the number 1 rushing touchdown leader for the Bills at this point in time, passing Thurman Thomas last week. So those are the stats there. Now looking at the players, well, of course you're going to start Josh Allen. How could you not after last week? I don't think he won't have a week like that this week. Just it's too difficult to have back-to-back weeks like that. He's not throwing for almost 400 yards. So we'll see what happens. But and then you do have Justin Fields. I'm starting Justin Fields as fast as, honestly, as I'm starting Josh Allen. And you can pick up Justin Fields a lot. You may even still find him in your league on the waiver wire. Incredibly, he had a great game last week, and if this is how he plays, could be a really interesting game. And we'll see. So you're starting both quarterbacks. Now, when it comes to the running backs, you want to start James Cook, but not as your lead running back if you can help it. Maybe your second or possible flex guy. I mean, he's questionable in this game to play, but if he is playing, you might think about playing him. He does score touchdowns like he did last year, so that's really what you're counting on. I personally am not sure I'd want to start him in this game. Now, wide receivers, I'm not starting until I see something definitive. A lot of people are jumping on the Coleman bandwagon, but I am going to wait and see Keon Coleman and see how he does. Right now, ESPN has him at 39th ranked. Maybe you put him in as your flex, but he had a good game last week, but it all came in the last half of the fourth quarter, basically. And so I'm not really interested in him to see if that's how it's going to work every week. Now, the wide receiver I am starting is Garrett Wilson for the Jets. If him and Fields have a connection, it could be big time. ESPN has him at 12th. I think he could easily be in the top 10 this week. And in fact, if my prediction's right, he almost has to be. So I would definitely be starting him. Now, the tight ends, again, I'm not even thinking really. I don't know. I don't trust the Buffalo to consistently throw the ball to Kincaid. So despite the kind of game he had, I'm not going to play him unless I have to. I mean, you're taking a big chance. So there's really not a tight end I'm interested in. So really, it's the two quarterbacks, and it's Garrett Wilson as the people you really want to start. So my score in this game, this is in New York. And the Buffalo Bills had such a crazy game on Sunday night. I'm picking this as an upset where the Jets win this game 30-24. Big upset there I'm picking. Number 6 game, New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins lead the series 64-55. Now, despite the fact that it's in Miami, Miami's only favored by 1.5. So they're not really expecting a lot out of Miami. Now, Mike McDaniel, as a coach, at least for now, is only one win behind Tony Sparano, which he was last week, and he still lost. So he lost, so he stays the same, but he's got 28 wins. Sparano has 29. So a win will tie him for 4th all-time in Miami Dolphins history. Looking at the wide receivers, Tyreek Hill didn't have a good game. He could have passed to moved into 7th all-time in receiving yards for Miami. Ariel Harris is there, who played in the 70s and 80s with 4,534 yards. Tyreek Hill only needs 27 yards receiving. He should get that to move into 7th all-time by himself. At the same time, you got Jalen Waddle, who's 10th all-time receiving yards for Miami with 4,159. He needs 65 yards, make that 85 yards, 85, a little more difficult, to move into 9th all-time over Brian Hartline. So you got 2 receivers in the top 10, and we'll see if they can move up each of them a spot, at least one. Now, looking at the Patriots, I don't know how long Ramondre Stevenson will be playing as much as he is, but if he continues to be, right now he's 9th all-time in rushing yards behind Corey Dillon. He needs basically 100 yards. He'll move into 8th all-time for the Patriots as far as rushing yards go. Now, when it comes to touchdowns, he needs 1 to move into tie for 10th. Steve Ridley and Tom Brady both have 22 rushing touchdowns in their careers with the Patriots. So Ramondre Stevens has 21. He needs 1 to tie them, 2 to pass them. And if he does get 2, that would tie him for 9th all-time with Don Calhoun. So he has a chance to move up into the top 10. Though, like I said, I'm not sure how long he's going to be the guy for this team, or have the same amount of opportunities had in the past. All right. As far as that goes, that's it for these two. Now, looking at the fantasy outlook for this game between the Patriots and the Dolphins, Tua, I thought he was going to have a good year, but this, and I'm going to maybe seem contradictory here, but I want to see this before I would even think about starting Tua, despite having Hill and Waddle and A-Chain out of the backfield. 3 guys you can throw the ball to all day long. I'm just going to wait and see on it. When it comes to Drake May, he's 10th right now, according to ESPN, probably about right. And I think he'll have a good game and probably live up to that 10th ranked status. Now, when it comes to running backs, A-Chain is 8th ranked. And you can see by the ESPN experts that they're not sure about him either. One guy has him as low as 4th and another has him as high as 9th. So I think he'll have a good game, and he needs to. And he's a reliable running back and receiver out of the backfield. So definitely somebody I'm thinking about starting. Now, when it comes to New England and whether you want to start anybody there, definitely you want to probably give Trayvon Henderson a chance. If you have 2 running backs, he definitely is somebody you might want to think about as your second running back. If you're starting him, it's chancy because, like I said, Stevenson's still there, but Henderson, I think, will continue to start dominating in this category. So I don't know if I want to start Henderson this week unless you have him as a second wide running back or your flex guy. But in the future, I definitely see him being the number 1 running back for the team. Now, looking at the wide receivers for this 2 teams, it's the same as the quarterback for Miami. As great as Hill can be, even with losing a step, I just don't know that I want to play him. And he's 22nd ranked wide receiver. So maybe as your flex guy, maybe number 2 wide receiver. But I'm wait and see. I'd like to see what happens before I really consider playing him. And the same goes for Waddle, though I do think Waddle has a chance. But we'll see. He's questionable, though, so I hate to say it. But if I was just going to say if Hill is trending down, maybe Waddle can pick it up. So I'm not going to touch anybody on that team as far as that goes. Now, for New England, right now it's a wait-and-see game. There's a possibility that you have somebody that might stand out like Diggs, but I think Diggs could be on his way out. He's the 46th ranked wide receiver, so unless you really have to, it's somebody you're not really starting. Now, the guy I'm going to be watching is Booty, Kayshon Booty. If he has another game like last week, he's somebody I might start thinking about playing as a sleeper. So those are your players. Tight end wise, I'm not starting anybody. I'm not starting the Miami guy for sure. I'm not starting anybody from Miami. Hunter Henry, actually, maybe if you're, like I said, just picking your tight end every week, he's ranked number 9. He could be the guy you would want to start. So in this game, when you wrap it up, I have the Dolphins actually winning, beating the Patriots. They looked bad last week against Indianapolis. The Dolphins did, but I'm going to say they turn it around in Miami and can pull out a win over the Patriots. Patriots are still a ways from being a good team, I think, a decent team. So I think the Dolphins have a chance. Their defense is still pretty good, despite the score against Indianapolis. So we'll see. If Dolphins lose this game, then all bets are off as far as them winning games. All right. Dolphins 23, Patriots 20. Next game, Seattle Seahawks at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh's favored by 2.5, so they got it close because it's in Pittsburgh. For the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers right now is ranked 7th all-time in the NFL in yardage passing with 63,196. He needs 245 yards in this game to pass Phillip Rivers to move into 6th by himself all time. So a good chance that he could do that. 245 yards was definitely something he could do. Now, in another category, touchdowns passing. Aaron Rodgers needs 1 to tie Brett Favre to move into 4th, tie for 4. 2 touchdown passes to pass Brett Favre to move into 4th all time in touchdown passes. Brett Favre has 508. Aaron Rodgers has 507. He had 4 last week, so getting 2 would definitely seem like it could be a possibility. So those are 2 stats to be watching for Aaron Rodgers to move up all-time NFL stats. Pretty impressive. Now, when it comes to tackles for loss, this battle is continuing on between Cameron Hayward, who is the current leader for the Steelers all-time in tackles for loss with 134. TJ Watt second with 128. Last week, TJ Watt had 2. Cameron Hayward had 1. Watt closed the lead a little bit. So it's a fun thing to watch. TJ Watt's already the all-time leader in sacks with 108 for the Steelers. So those are some good players to watch on defense and then on offense as well. Now, Kenneth Walker for the Seattle Seahawks is trying to move into 10th all-time in rushing yards. He's got 2,548, and Maurice Morris, who's 10th, has 2,612. So he needs 65 yards to move into 10th by himself. He could get it, but after last week and with Charbonnet seeming to carry the ball as much or more than Kenneth Walker, it's a wait and see there. Now, in a different department, in the touchdown department, Kenneth Walker right now is tied with Chris Carson for 6th all-time in touchdowns rushing with 24 for the Seahawks. So he just needs 1 touchdown and he will move into 6th by himself. On the defensive front, Jaron Reed, their defensive tackle, needs 1 tackle for loss to tie Frank Clark for 9th, 2 to pass him to be 9th all-time as far as that number goes. All right, so those are some of your players there. Now, looking at these 2 teams as far as the players go, and despite the numbers, Aaron Rodgers is somebody that's kind of an interesting play, but he's mostly all throwing the game, and I don't expect to see him have 4 touchdowns, so he's not a quarterback that I'm going to touch. And Sam Darnold's another one that I'm not touching either. Neither quarterback runs enough, and so you're relying strictly on the passing game, and I just don't see them being anybody you'd want to play. There's too many better options. Now, in the running game, again, for Seattle, I don't think I'm, as much as people drafted Walker to be the guy, I'm afraid I don't want to start him, especially against Pittsburgh. And until I see what's going on there, I don't want to start either one as far as starting goes. So I'm not starting. Kenneth Walker right now is 30th, but I'm not starting him until I see what kind of split between him and Charbonnet there is. Now, for Seattle, right now, Jaylen Warren's the guy, but he split too much time last week with Gainwell, and they have the rookie running back as well. But Jaylen Warren's 21st running back right now. If you've got 2 running backs and he's one of them, maybe you start him. But other than that, I don't think I want to start any of them. Now, when it comes to the wide receivers, whole different ball game here. You definitely want to start Smith Najigba, though they do have him ranked as the 13th. That's ESPN in PPR at 13th ranked. But I am a little surprised by that. I do expect to see him continue to be. He dominated in the passing game, and in targets. So I don't see that changing. Despite whatever Pittsburgh may do, they're going to try to get him the ball. So I would start him for sure. As far as anybody else, I'm not starting anybody else for Seattle. Cooper Kupp, I was hoping might show up, but really I didn't see much out of him, so I'm not starting him. Now for Pittsburgh, DK Metcalf, I do want to start. I still feel that he's their number one guy for sure. And I think that Aaron Rodgers likes him, so is going to try to get him the ball. And if you can get him the ball, he's going to make some good plays after the catch. So I'm starting both of those guys if I have them on my team. All right. Now, when it comes to the tight ends, let me see. I wouldn't start either one of them, to be honest with you. Jonnu Smith he's not the same player on Pittsburgh as he was with Miami. They're not using him the same, so I wouldn't start him. And I'm not going to start the Seattle guy either. I mean, just not going to do it. So nobody else on that team. So in this game, I got the Steelers winning this 30-24. Somewhat close game, but Steelers are going to win it 30-24. Next game, Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. The Bears lead this series 105 wins to 80 with 5 ties. Now the Lions are favored by 5.5. Quite a big spread, really. I'm a little surprised. Now in this game, Jared Goff is the guy to watch here. One good, one bad. In touchdowns, throwing, he's third all time for Detroit. He's already third. He's behind Bobby Lane, who played in the 50s, who has 118 touchdown passes. Jared Goff has 116. So he needs 2 to tie, 3 to pass. And if he can move into second all time, he'll be behind only Matthew Stafford with his 282. Now, in another department where, like I said, this is the negative, in sacks. Right now, Matthew Stafford, of course, leads the team all-time in sacks with 385. But Jared Goff is now 9th in sacks with 123. Scott Mitchell, who played in the 90s, has 124. And Rodney Peete, who played in the early 90s, has 127. So Jared Goff needs 1 to tie Mitchell, 4 to tie Rodney Peete, 5 to pass them both. So he's either going to probably finish in 8th or 7th, somewhere in that range after this game. So he's moving up in that category, one that you don't want to move up into. As far as running backs go, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's got to have, let me see something here real quick. Okay. I was trying to see what I did here. All right. Sorry about that. It was something I got on my head here. But Jahmyr Gibbs, already for the team, has 26 rushing TDs to be 5th all time. Nick Pietrasante, who played in the early 60s, had 28. So he needs 2 rushing touchdowns to tie for 4th, 3 to move into 4th all time by himself. He's got to have a better game than he had last week rushing and even receiving. He had set a record. He had 10 receptions. That's not the record. He only had 31 yards. That's the fewest yards on 10 catches in NFL history. So it wasn't great that he's getting that, and it helped his overall numbers as far as fantasy goes, but it's not what you want to see. Now, when it comes to receiving touchdowns, Amon-Ra St. Brown has 33. He's 7th all time. He's behind 3 guys who have 35. So he needs 2 to tie to move into 4th, 3 to pass them and move into a tie for 3rd. So he's moving up the list here, but it's quite a ways behind Calvin Johnson at 83. Now for the Bears, Caleb Williams, even though this is only his 2nd year, has a chance, probably a good chance to move into 10th all time as far as being sacked goes for the Chicago Bears. He's got 70 sacks right now, which puts him at 12th, but only 1 behind Eric Kramer, who's in 11th, and 2 behind Vince Evans, who's the 10th ranked back as far as being sacked. So he only needs 2 to tie for 10th. Gets any more than that, he's also got a chance to move into 9th. So we'll see. But he's already, and only is early into his 2nd season, already in the top 10, or will be as far as sacks go. That's really the only guy, and negatively. So we've got 2 quarterbacks moving up in the sack department. Not what you want to see. Now, when it comes to fantasy outlook, when it comes to the quarterbacks, do you want to start either one of these? Well, probably. Goff, though, they have him listed as 21st ranked quarterback. I don't see that, but I don't think you want to start him if you can help it. And I wouldn't start Caleb Williams either. He's ranked 18th. So neither one, though Caleb Williams has a good chance with his legs to do well. And if you watched the Chicago game last week, if you only watched the first half, you'd be out there drafting Caleb Williams or trying to pick him up right away. But if you stayed long enough to watch the second half, then you start to question whether you really do want to pick up Caleb Williams. Because in the first half, he looked like he couldn't be stopped. He was running around. He had looked like he was having a good game, and it just switched. So I don't know. But Jared Goff, he doesn't normally finish this low ever. So we'll see. He just throws the ball quite prevalent. He's prevalent with a quarterback throwing and touchdowns. So somebody you might sneak in if you have to, but if you can help it, you may not want to start him. In this game, let me get to the running backs. Like I said, Gibbs, who you obviously are going to start despite the game. He's 6th ranked now, but he's got to have a better game than he had last week. So I would start him no matter what. Now, whether you want to start Montgomery is if maybe your flex guy, but he's starting to be phased out. That's the idea. Whether it's actually true or not, we'll see. He's always been a good player to put in as your flex player. He's 27th ranked running back. So if you've got 2, he's somebody you might want to play. He's always somebody that's has a chance to get a touchdown as well. So definitely somebody you're thinking about starting. Now, as far as Chicago goes, you're having to rely on DeAndre Swift, and it's been very mixed. A lot of talk early that with the new coaching that he'd catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. And if that holds to be true, he could be somebody you want as your second running back or a flex guy. Right now, he's 23rd ranked running back. So I kind of thought I actually have him on a team, but I'm questioning whether I want to start him until I see what his role really is. Now, when it comes to the wide receivers for these 2 teams, right now, Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't have a good game last week. He's 6th ranked wide receiver. Honestly, I'm hesitant to put him as my lead guy, maybe as my second, and I want to see something out of this. There's too many receivers, too many people catching the ball, and I just don't know if he's going to continue to be the main guy, but we'll see. He should be, and considering that he had such a bad game last week, they may try to get him the ball more this week. We'll have to wait and see. Jameson Williams, the guy that you've heard a lot about. Right now, he's the 35th ranked guy, and coming and busting out this year. I don't know if he's going to be a bust out, but will he hinder St. Brown, even if he's not a bust out? That's kind of the question here. So I'm kind of reluctant to start him, though he could do well. So I'm more of, unfortunately for them, I'm not recommending the Detroit receivers as highly as I would their running back. We'll just have to wait and see. At least I'm going to wait and see. If you have the options, I'm going to wait. It's the same goes for Chicago's DJ Moore. I don't want to start him until I see that he's going to be really the guy. Right now, he's a 25th ranked wide receiver, so maybe as my flex guy, I would. But he's somebody I avoided in the draft when I was in my fantasy draft altogether. Rome Odunze, sorry about that, is the 34th ranked guy. And this is where I'm watching DJ Moore to see if Odunze's maybe the guy now. He seems to be more dynamic as far as wide receiver goes. So he's somebody I'm looking at a little bit more as my flex guy, and I'll take the chance that he has a big game versus the type of game that DJ Moore may have. But we'll see. Now, when it comes to the tight end, Sam Laporta is the 5th ranked tight end. And again, this is why I'm worried about St. Brown being the 6th wide receiver when he has other wide receivers and you have this tight end and you have the guys out of the backfield. So I'm reluctant to start Brown, but Laporta is a good start if you've got him. Now for Chicago, Colston Loveland, mixed reviews on him. A lot of people are picking him to have a bust out year. We'll see. And then when you look at the numbers here, it's crazy. He's ranked 20th tight end. So if you want to take a gamble, you can. One of these ESPN experts don't even have him rated in the top 25. Another one has him at 11th. So that just tells you where he stands. That's why he finishes up at 20th. Nobody's quite sure what to do with him. Now in this game, I'm picking the Lions to win 24-17. They're not going to lose 2 in a row, I don't think. I'm pretty confident, and I think they can do enough to shut down the Bears to win this game in 24-17. One more game, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Jaguars lead this series 13-12, so close. Now, this is in Cincinnati, and the Bengals are favored by 3.5, so not that big of a spread considering it's a home game for Cincinnati. Now, looking at some of the players, T. Higgins, receiving touchdowns, is in 11th. He needs 1 to tie Bob Trumpy to move into a tie for 10th in all-time receiving touchdowns for the Cincinnati Bengals, 2 to move into 10th all by himself. On the defensive side, Trey Hendrickson, 6th all-time in tackles for loss. He needs 1 to tie Sam Hubbard and Justin Smith for tie for 4th place, 2 to pass them to move into 4th all by himself. He's halfway on his way to catching Carlos Dunlap, who's 1st with 103. Though I'm not sure he will. He signed this contract, this 1-year deal, so we'll see what happens as far as him staying on this team. Now, when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Travis Etienne, who had an excellent game last week, moved into 4th all-time rushing yards behind James Stewart, who has 2,951. Travis Etienne has 2,834. So he needs 118 yards, which is definitely doable considering he had 143 last week, I think it was. So he could move into 3rd all-time. He's never going to catch Fred Taylor because I'm not even sure Travis Etienne will be on this team, maybe even by the end of the year, but definitely probably not next year. But he's moving into 3rd. He's pushing to move into 3rd all time. And when it comes to touchdowns, he's pushing Stacey Mack, who's 4th with 19 touchdowns rushing. Travis Etienne has 18, so he needs 1 to tie, 2 to move into 4th all by himself. Chris Jones-Drew is the leader with 68 rushing touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence is 10th all-time in rushing touchdowns with 14. He's tied with the other quarterback, who the first quarterback, or he didn't start out as the first quarterback, but he ended up being the quarterback for the Jaguars when they first started. But Mark Brunell has 14 touchdowns rushing, and so does Trevor Lawrence. So 1 more, and Trevor Lawrence will be 9th all by himself. All right. Now looking at defense, Josh Hines Allen's already the all-time leader in tackles for loss for the Jaguars with 63. And right now he's looking to try to move into number 1 all-time in sacks. He's got 53. Tony Brackens leads the team all-time with 55. So Hines Allen needs 2 to tie, 2.5 to move into the lead all by himself. This would be a great game to get it. Burrows is somebody that does get sacked a lot, so there's a good chance, or a chance that he does, because Burrows likes to throw that ball down the field, and he will hold it. Also on this list, 2 other players in the top 10, and that's Dwayne Smoot, who has 24.5 sacks, and Trayvon Walker, who's in 10th with 24. So those 2 players are battling out to see who stays at 9th or 10th, so we'll watch that as well. So a lot of defensive players to watch as far as sacks go. Hines Allen, Dwayne Smoot, Trayvon Walker. So those are some of the players to watch as far as that goes. Now, looking at the quarterback situation as far as fantasy goes, well, Burrows is 5th-ranked quarterback, and I think he stunk it up last week. I don't know what happened there. how it's even possible for him to throw for less than 200 yards, but he did. But I definitely don't expect to see that. I probably think we're looking at a 300-yard game here. So he's easily ranked fifth as far as quarterbacks go, and I think he'll get that without a problem. Now, when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, he's 13th ranked. I think that's too low because I think he's going to have a good game against the Cincinnati defense, and he should be in the top 10. And he has more legs than sometimes he's given credit for. So he could get some yards on the ground and even a rushing touchdown. He has been known to do that. So it's possible that Trevor Lawrence has a top 10 game this week. Now, when we're looking at the running backs, well, Travis Etienne, we were all waiting to see what was going to happen after last week. I mean, going into the first week of the season, whether, Etienne was the guy, but it was a question of, was he going to be the guy, or was he going to split carries with Bigsby and their new running back Tootin? Well, Bigsby's gone, and last week it was all Travis Etienne. Now, ESPN has him ranked as the 19th running back. I guess that could be the case. I don't know if he's going to have another 140-something yards. He didn't have any touchdowns, but he also catches some passes out of the backfield. So he could have I think he could have a top 10 game for sure. So to have him 19th. So if he's on your team, you definitely want to have him as your second running back. Maybe your first, but definitely your second if you have two, or your flex person if you don't use a wide receiver there. Now, again, Chase Brown is ranked the 7th best running back. He had a terrible game last week as well, and I don't expect to see that. I mean, Cincinnati's offense looked horrible, and I just think that was completely out of character, and it was against Cleveland. So I think we'll see a big change there. So he's definitely somebody that could be in the top 5 this week as far as running goes. But right now they have him at 7th. That may be just about right. So those two running backs, you definitely want to start both of them. Now, when it comes to the wide receivers, well, you're going to start Chase for sure. He's listed as the number 1 wide receiver, and he could have a big game, though I hope it's not too big since I'm a Jaguar fan. But he could have a big game. Now, for Higgins, he's definitely somebody. He's ranked 16th, so he could be your second wide receiver or your flex play, because I think that both of them could have decent games. We'll see. The Jaguars' defense was horrible last year, and they've made a ton of improvements, and we'll just see how it goes. I'm hoping Travis Hunter has a huge game. Not Calais, but Campbell, their other cornerback, has a big game, and Lewis as well. Hopefully they can, despite maybe Chase and Higgins having big games and Burrows, that they can somehow have an interception or two. Now, Brian Thomas had a horrible game as well last week. He's 8th ranked wide receiver. I'm hoping to see a big game out of him this week. And if not him, somebody you might want to sneak in is Travis Hunter, who's listed at 27th. It's possible that he has a much bigger game than he even had last week, and that they open it up. Every week they're opening up the offensive playbook a little bit more for him. He gets these routes down better and better. He could have a big breakout game, break something wide open. He gets a lot of short passes, but instead of, going for, 10 yards or so, maybe he breaks one. So he's a sneaky pick to put in your lineup. Now, tight ends, Strange has been incredible. He's very interesting play. He's 15th ranked. Some have him as low as 10th, or as good as 10th, and all the way to 18th. He's somebody I think that Lawrence is looking at when he needs help. He's looking Strange's way, and Strange catches. He's on the field all the time, because not only is he a good receiver, he's a good blocker. So he's out there. Unlike Ingram last year, who was a good wide receiver, Ingram wasn't much of a blocker. So Strange can do it all. So he's a tight end that if you're flexing your tight ends and you're bringing him each week, Strange a good one to think about playing. For Cincinnati, Noah Fant, maybe. He had a decent game. He could have a big game. It's just he's 25th ranked. tight end. So we'll have to see on that. Now, here's my second upset. And I know it's in Cincinnati, and I know I'm being a homer, but I'm hoping that Jacksonville puts it all together and can beat Cincinnati in a tight, high-scoring game, 34, Jaguars, Bengals, 31. All right. That was a long episode, but we wanted to get through all those games. So I have two big upsets, Jets over the Bills and the Jaguars over the Bengals, and we'll see how it goes. Of course, the Jets over the Bills is a much bigger upset, but we'll see what happens. So that's this episode of my preview. Tomorrow, we'll preview the rest of the games as well as looking at the Monday night game and seeing how that went. I hope you like this and subscribe to it. That helps out. You can do it at YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. Also on any podcast site, whether it's Spotify, Apple sites, or any other one, you can find me at Just the Stats NFL. You can email me at justthestatnfl@gmail.com. And appreciate you listening. And until next time, that is a wrap for this episode of Just the Stats NFL.